And that should be us live now. Let's see if we can wait for anyone to join. Yeah. What I want to do is can't hear any of us. That's because we're not talking. Can you hear us now? Can you hear us, Miriam? Can you tell us if you can hear us now? What if I do that? Can you hear us? Can you hear us now? There's an echo coming.
It says online everyone can see and hear you.
I'm going to join here and see. Can someone confirm that they can hear us, please, on the chat? Yeah, they can say they can hear us, Nadeem. So I think we can just get started then. So yeah, we are here at the Urban Community Project, and we have a very interesting topic of discussion this evening. So hopefully you guys can see my screen. So I'm Ameer, and I'm joined today by my brother Nadeem. For any of you who are new to Urban Community Project, we are two of the three who run the organisation. And this evening we are here to talk about what can sometimes be considered, and it's interesting actually, because I did say to Nadeem when we kind of came to the idea of doing this, that is it a taboo subject? And Nadeem said that might have been the case once upon a time, but the reality of it is that's no longer the case. But, you know, in our community, it can be a difficult topic. It can be something that people are not really sure how to respond to, how to deal with. Nevertheless, it is a growing concern. And obviously Nadeem works day to day frontline with members of the community, young and old, and this type of issue it's not something he's not familiar with. So we thought it would be ideal to get onto a kind of Instagram live. We're trying a new software, so please feedback, bear with us and let us know. But we are streaming live on our Facebook, our Instagram, and our YouTube channel. So we're getting better at this, hopefully, inshallah. So yeah, and hopefully the idea is to record these as well. So we'll see how we get on, inshallah, with that as well. So Nadeem,
yes, hello.
Where should we kick
Assalamu
off?
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So yeah, this is I suppose the episode 2 from last week. So last week we spoke about addiction, kind of overall, and we had a lot of questions and a lot of discussion around addiction as a whole. So today, as Ameer said, we thought we'd start kind of raising awareness around the subject of pornography, and also as most in medical terms they call it problematic pornography use, and then we'll go into an area of what is like what does it mean from a religious perspective or a cultural perspective as well, if we can, and a little bit about gender. So we had an interesting some feedback from someone, and I was hoping that, well, we both were hoping that we could get someone else on, but just because of the timing, and also this is quite a new thing for us as well. We weren't able to get a female member, a female kind of person to come on, but I've been told by a few of them that some practitioners will be coming online just to add to the discussion through comments. So we'll see what happens. So yeah, Ameer, you can fire away like whatever you want to ask, and we'll just let's just keep it informal. I think that's the best way.
A conversation around, the P word, pornography. So I guess, the reality of it is, I don't think, Nadeem, in this day and age, it can be a topic that's hidden. It's the truth is, when you talk about defining pornography, from my perspective, it's not as clear cut as it maybe once was. I think pornography, maybe in the past or historically, I mean, again, you can maybe correct me here, what the actual definition is, and maybe I should have had a look online to see what the actual definition of pornography was. However,
okay, I've got you covered, don't worry.
The reality of it is, though, if you look at music videos, if you look at films, if you look at even banners, I remember driving through Giffnock, if anybody knows the Giffnock area, and they used to, now it's a digital banner, but they used to have just a normal, the kind of banners, advertisement banners that they've got at the side of the road. And I remember driving past, and it was a female model, obviously dressed, advertising some type of swimwear or something. And I remember my dad saying to me, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, there's no way that they would have got away with putting something like that image up just there in the public, And it's a sign of how times have changed as to what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And at the time, just kind of brushed it off, no big deal. But when you think about it, it makes sense. And the reality of it is that threshold has got worse. It's become, it's not gotten better, it's gotten worse. I mean, what do you think?
I think no, I agree. I agree that we live in a very highly sexualized society. This is all over the world. There is so much. The people that are in the kind of health profession or in the medical profession, they know, and you can get it online as well if you just search it. There's so much research around it now all over the world. But just to kind of break it down into context, in essence, like what your dad said is, even if you see something that's like if you're a man and you see a woman that shows some flesh, or she's got provocative clothing on, or vice versa, if a man is not wearing so much, that comes into the realms of like sexual behavior, and that's basically what, very layman terms. I mean, I might be totally wrong, but most of this is my own opinion from my experiences and also from working in addictions. So I'm trying to break it down just for the audience. When it becomes compulsive, that's when it becomes a problem. So when you're not able to function on a daily basis, when it starts to have an effect on your mental health, starts to have an effect on relationships, starts to have an effect on financial health, and then I mean, even kind of biologically as well. So you can have sexual dysfunctions. That's where okay, this person or the individual has got some issues going on, and it could be an addiction, or it could be like compulsive behavior. So just to kind of clarify, so according to the World Health Organization, this is in 2022, they've recognized compulsive sexual behavior disorder as an impulsive control disorder. So compulsive sexual behavior disorder is not an addiction, and that's according to the American Psychiatric Association. So there's different schools of thought, I suppose, but overall they all agree that it's a behavioural thing, and has an effect on you physically, has an effect on you mentally and emotionally, and then we can go into the realms of spirituality as well. It definitely has an effect on the spiritual aspect. I mean, addiction, full stop, it does. I mean, we spoke, not to repeat myself, but some of the things we spoke about last week was when you look at people that are trying to recover or they're in recovery, religion and faith and spirituality is one aspect that's kind of worked over many years, and it's still kind of one of the treatments, other than the treatment that you get physically from a recovery service, etc. But pornography is very it's a it's something that affects the heart, something that affects your thoughts, your feelings, and of course it affects your behaviour. And going back to the biological aspect, that's the kind of apparent thing that affects.
See, before we go into the part about the spiritual aspect and the heart, just for any of our viewers who are watching here who might feel that this is perhaps not an issue in our Muslim community here, you know, what's your kind of take on that? If somebody was to say, well, you know, we keep an eye on our children, they've got, you know, discipline at home, and, you know, kind of this is a non-issue. What do you think about that? I think that's, yeah, I think that's quite extremely naive, but I want your kind of thoughts on it.
So interestingly, the social media and the internet age that we live in, which isn't that, I mean, I can still remember when there was no internet, and I'm kind of in my early 40s. When I was in school, so high school, not everyone had the internet. So in having the internet, social media, that has had a huge effect on like porn use, because number one, you can access it and it's completely free. And now it's got to a stage where people are like things like OnlyFans, for example. So that's for the people that don't know what that is. It's a place where men and women, if you have you know, basically it's like you can pay for seeing certain things, but it's online. So the kind of old school way, if you want to call it, when you go out, sex trafficking or prostitution, that kind of thing. Yeah, you had to go out your way and have a contact or someone that you know. But now you have this thing where it's kind of open and it's celebrated. And there's also people that are in the minority groups. So people that are, for example, in the LGBT community, porn use is very prevalent within that community as well, because again, it's to do with sexuality, exploration, that kind of thing. But bringing it back to kind of home and bringing it back to the, like you said, some of the work that I do, and I speak to a lot of my colleagues in counselling, psychotherapy. One of the things that always comes up when it comes to relationships is somebody who's using porn, and it's starting to affect their relationship. It's starting to affect their, you know, the bedroom department, and then that has a huge consequence to the husband and wife. Unfortunately, some of the research that I've looked at in preparation for this is saying now that, I mean, again, this isn't just in the UK or in Scotland, but this is kind of across. They're saying on average, the first time kids watch porn is from the age of 11. And some research is younger than that. And it's you know, I think boys is major in them, but then again, it's because boys come forward and they say, yeah, that's the first time I've used it, and girls mask it. Girls don't.
Is there a bit of that there? I mean, the kind of I'm going to say
talking about young people.
Even young people. If we think about young people, and you know, the mind always wanders to, you know, young boys who you know, have got that kind of going through puberty, testosterone building up, etc., etc. They've got those, but one of the things I suppose I'm trying to understand here, or trying to bring out, is that this is, from my understanding, this isn't just a male problem, and
No.
porn addiction exists with females as well in our Muslim community.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. It's, I mean, it's not just porn. There's other addictions as well that females have all, I've come across. I've not come across that many since I've been working in the sector, with a female coming forward and saying, I'm using porn to cope with things. But like alcohol, drugs, other kind of behaviors that become really harmful or addictive. A lot of, I have come across females, but not as many as boys. That was my point. The boys and the men, there seems to be more of them coming forward, or more awareness around it. But with women and girls, it's not as much, especially in this, what we're talking about today. I think overall, is the thing to remember is the word. I mean, we came up with the name. Well, Ameer came up with the name, and I agreed with it. It's like Haw. You said the word porn. It's like a dirty word, and there's a big, huge stigma attached to it. So especially within our community, in our own communities, that has a negative connotation, and we stay away from it.
Yeah.
But we have to face it, that this is a problem. It's a problem within our community for young women and young men. Not just young, but also men that are men and women that are older, the ones that are in relationships, they're married and they've got children. And the main thing is that, the way I look at it, as someone that works with people, it's important to try not to judge the person, but look at the behavior. So the behavior is something that's troubling them, and it's a coping mechanism to something else. It's attached to something, and they're using this as a way to cope.
Yeah. See, our resident.
I can't see any of the comments, by the way, so I'm going to leave that to you.
It's a resident comedian, Bilal, saying that his addiction is iron brew. Does that fall under the same umbrella? No, Bilal, you can safely drink your iron brew. But thank you for a very meaningful contribution to our conversation.
The interesting thing is Bilal is diabetic, so, and if he's drinking iron brew, even if it's sugar free, I don't really think that's a good idea for him. But there you go.
Consult your doctor on that, Bilal. You mentioned, Nadeem, about the impact that porn addiction has on marriages, and I was speaking to somebody at the end of last week at an event, and they were talking about, and I think they were specific to America, that it's like high 40s, even low 50s% of divorce rates in America is down to the other partner having an addiction with porn and pornography. And I suppose I'm wondering if this whole, I'm going to call it a pandemic, or whatever you want to call it, in terms of that's taken over, is this sort of access to that kind of material to kind of rewiring the brain of young people to kind of have this almost image of, trying to strive for perfection, or trying to strive for, because generally speaking, they'll be going for images of, X type of girl, and that for them might not be what, so it's kind of building that ungratefulness of what they have, and, appreciating what they've got, men and women, appreciating what they've got in front of them, and turning elsewhere for that sort of satisfaction.
So, I mean, the word that comes to mind when you were talking there is the dopamine effect. So it gives, so it's a reward system. That's the way it kind of, again, in layman terms, it works for the person. So whether it's you're a male or a female, and you see something that's pleasing to the eye, and it makes you feel good inside, that feeling, or that thing, it starts from the brain. There's some schools of thought that say it starts from the heart. The heart is the headquarters, or the brain is the headquarters. But overall, it's like you get a good feeling, and the more you focus on that, the more you kind of go towards that. That's when it becomes a bit of an issue. So, I mean, with relationships, I mean, again, I'm just going to talk in layman terms and from my experiences. I've come across people where the couple are struggling because one of them is using porn, but then the conversation or the questions that are asked within like within that is that why is it that he's using, why is his eyes kind of moving away, or why are her eyes going somewhere else? A lot of women have said to me in the past when the guy is using porn and he's admitted to it, they do say it's worse than having an affair, because that's what it feels like to the partner, and it's very difficult because then the trust goes away, the trust is broken, but then on the other side, I've worked with couples where they've worked together on it. The guys said, "Look, I'm going to admit to everything," because once you start something like that, it's like if somebody has an affair and the trust goes away, manipulation techniques come into place, and the person, because you can't trust the person, or the person that's got the addiction or the compulsive behavior, they'll say anything or do anything just to get away with it, just to get their dopamine hit or get their what they need, just to function, just to kind of move along. So they'll lie, they won't tell the full truth. And going back to the 12-step program, that's one of the treatment protocols for porn addiction as well, or someone who's got a sexual behavior, sexual issues like this. The very first step is that they admit that they have got a problem, and then a big part of it is speaking the truth and being open and honest and being authentic with their loved ones, with their partner. I don't know. Have you? I mean, what do you think? What's your kind of?
I think
You
that
tell me.
the reality of it is it's scary because I think we're surrounded by it, right? In terms of it's like they always talk about the temptation, right? And you don't need to look very far on a mobile device, right? The reality of it is you can be scrolling through TikTok, you can be scrolling through Facebook, Instagram, you can even be surfing the web, and you're hit with inappropriate images. You get spam emails through, like, forever things going to your junk. It seems to be bombarding you from every angle, and that's where it's scary. And I think that, without trying to be too controversial, I think the government and these big tech organizations ethically need to play a part in how they allow these kind of organizations, companies, whatever you want to call them, entities, to operate on their platforms. That's one of the key things for me. It's just everywhere. It's not something, and to be honest, I know that pornography is generally, it's what you're looking at, but could you argue it can go as far as the music that you're listening to, the things that people are, you don't have to, again, go too far in some of the songs that have been released in recent times, and even, over the last 15, 20 years, where there's a lot of kind of talking about that type of thing.
So what do you mean with the music? Are you talking about like music videos or the lyrics, or that?
Yeah,
kind of
lyrics and videos. So even if you're listening, the descriptive parts of certain songs, Tupac and various other big artists who have been here in the past, and they've always taken it to another level in the way they describe their fantasies, or whatever you want to call it. But the reality of it is, when you see the videos nowadays, I mean, I can't say for the now, I don't look at a lot of music channels nowadays, but music in general, my understanding is it's just got worse and worse, and there's a whole new curve that we'll not talk about on this particular session, of a wave of different types of kind of sexualization that's coming into music videos as well. Are you having issues with audio, Nadeem, or are you all right?
Sorry, Ameer, my earphones have just give me 1 second.
Have they died on you? I'll check to see if we've got any other questions or comments. Bilal, it's for my lows. You're always a happy guy, Bilal. I don't believe you have any lows. I think Nadeem's going to jump off and jump back on again. So while we're waiting on Nadeem coming back, I think, are you back?
Yeah, I'm back.
Cool. Yeah, I was just going to say there, one of the things that always comes to my mind is that if we're not going to pretend, if we're going to not pretend that the issue exists, so if we're going to accept the fact that it exists in our community, then we need to ask ourselves, how do we assist and how do we guide those who are going through those kind of tribulations? And the reality of it is, Nadeem, I don't know, there will be some who do it and take pleasure in it and, have no desire to change their ways. But I also firmly believe that there'll be individuals out there who know what they're doing, who know that it's wrong, and who genuinely want to come away from that, who genuinely want to they know the impact it's having on them. And at that point, how open are we as a community, as a faith, as a culture, to empowering those people to come away from it? Are they going to get blasted with that's haram, you're going to go to hell? Are they going to get useless, not useless, but are they going to get advice or guidance that maybe isn't really getting to the core of what the issue is? And you've always spoken about this, and it's something that you've always taught me, is that there's always a core issue underlying a lot of these, like all of these addictions are generally, there's a core issue that they're covering. And so with porn addiction, it's the same thing. There'll be an underlying issue there. And so my question is then, is that the biggest point? Is that what we as a community need to target? Is that core problem? Or in this scenario, is it a case of going cold turkey, like delete the apps off your phone, throw your phone in the bin, like go, so I think it was at a recent event again, the last week, there was a speaker who spoke about this, and I mentioned him to you, Nadeem, and he spoke about putting settings in place on your phone, putting in timers, putting in all this stuff to kind of pull yourself away from it. Is that a technique, or is that just dealing with the surface?
So it's a bit like CBT. So I mean, that's something that I'm trained in. One of the models I'm trained in. So see, it's cognitive behavioral therapy. So you've got the cognitive side. The cognitive therapy is usually, okay, how do I deal with these thoughts? How do I work out why am I getting these thoughts? Where is it taking me? And then sometimes that's kind of when you think something, then that's attached to what you feel. And then if you let your feelings dictate things, especially your behavior, then that's usually a recipe for disaster. The behavioral aspect, that's the aspect this Sheikh you were telling me about, which is very, very kind of common now. There's websites I've seen, like, where people, I mean, there's different names for them. I can't remember the top of my head, but it's about the gaze, about covering the gaze. So we know, like on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, when you get the kind of blue light, or that gives the dopamine effect when someone messages you, when you see the kind of the alert that someone's contacting you. So in the same way, what they advise is that you can put measures in place to reduce that. So I mean, I've kind of tried and tested this in the past with clients, where you can even switch off the color format of your phone and just make it totally black and white, and that actually works. That's supported some people, because just having a phone, and because it's so HD, it's high definition, it's in your pocket constantly, and as soon as you look at your phone, that also has an effect on you, and you end up scrolling, you end up
watching things. And yeah, so I mean, I think counselling does help. It does support, because the role of counselling is not. I mean, I keep saying this to people, right? Especially in our community, the role of counselling or therapy is not to advise the client. It's not to advise you. It's to listen to you. We're trained in active listening, and to support you to work out what's the underlying, what's the root cause? What's the root cause to your negative core belief, for example? So for some people, it's I'm not good enough. So if your core belief, and then when I don't know, when your wife says to you that I wish I had a house which had 6 bedrooms, a double garage, a beautiful back garden, etc., and you're a guy kind of working a 9 to 5 job and you're not earning enough to have that. For men, that takes a toll, and if you have that core, one of your core beliefs is that I'm telling myself, nothing to do with what the wife is saying, by the way. I'm not against women, in case I get all the sisters kind of, but it's to do with the mental health aspect. If that comes up, then one of the ways to cope with that core belief is you could end up using porn as a way to soothe yourself, as a way to reward yourself away from that, just for that moment in time. And then if it becomes a habit, then obviously it becomes, it's not good for you. We've already kind of said that. So that's just an example. But I think what you said, see, from a cultural aspect, like from the culture of if somebody opens up and says, look, I'm watching porn, or I've got a porn addiction and I can't help it. And if you're an average person and you're listening to this, especially from the Muslim perspective, I mean, either you go down the route of the shame culture, so you shame the person in different ways, even though sometimes you might not mean it. You might go down the route of your intention is to help the person, but then when you start to give them quote things to say, "Oh, you're going to go to hell if you do this. You're a sinner," things like that. That can have a negative effect on the person. So the other side of it is, I mean, like I mentioned about the 12 Steps program, there is an Islamic version that's, especially on the other side of the world in the States. It's a bigger Muslim community, and they use the repentance model, which is the tawbah, that aspect of tawbah. So if the person's intention is that, look, I've got a problem and I want, I've made a commitment to Allah or a commitment to God to stop doing this, but I need support, I need help. That's the first step. That's the first step to do that. And you do need one-to-one support. I believe you do need one-to-one support. You can't do it yourself. Sometimes it's too much to go into a whole group of people and then talk about it, because then that shame aspect, the stigma aspect comes out. So I think I think we need to do a lot more work around that. There isn't enough going on just across the UK, where we've got practitioners or people that are in the health field to support people from the Muslim community. And what we said earlier on about women especially, I think, there are women out there and girls that are suffering with the same thing. And I think it's even more difficult for them. And again, going back to that shame culture, that's one of the reasons why.
Yeah. I just reached into my drawer there because I remembered I had this, Nadeem, for our younger audiences. This
let
here,
me guess, that's a 8230.
yeah, that's Nokia 8230. Right? Yeah, 8230. Yeah. Was it 6230? Sorry, 6230.
6230. Okay.
6230. So these phones for our younger audience,
A Nokia.
yeah, you'd struggle you'd struggle to access anything on one of these. Back in the day when a phone was a phone, and that was it. But
Yeah,
yeah,
there
it was
no social
interesting.
media. The best that
Nothing.
you could probably get is a snake game.
Yeah, that was all that kept you awake at night, was trying to catch the wee dot on the screen with the snake. Yeah, I mean, coming back to your sort of comment there about kind of opening the doors up. I don't know if you, personally speaking, I don't know if we did this as an in-person thing in our place. If people would perhaps come along to it, I don't know if. I mean, the reality is, it's one thing to talk about the if we're looking at this from a young person's perspective, it's one thing to convince the young people, but the reality of it is as well, at home they have parents, and we've got parents who are still very traditional, still very kind of culturally minded, who will, like, this is just a no-go area, no-go topic, no-go area, and
The
it's
thing, the
those.
thing is, Ameer, see, again, we live in a society where we live in a secular society, right?
Mm,
That's important to kind of acknowledge. We live in a society where it's not religious, it's not Islamic or Christian or Jewish, right? And I've come across therapists, right, in the past, where they advocate masturbation. They say that's a healthy thing, and they say it's only like porn is only problematic if it's affecting your kind of daily routine. That's the kind of some of the things that have been said, and where I'm kind of sitting in that space. And yeah, I mean, we live in a country where that kind of humanistic approach that exists, and so it comes back down to the family, and it comes back down to the community that you're from, and it's not easy. It's difficult. It is hard.
I think I've lost your audio a wee bit again, Nadeem. There we go, I've got you. Oh, I've lost you again. Oh, there, you're back. You're back.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Yeah, so that's important to acknowledge. So see, for young people, they are it's difficult for them because especially at the age of 9, 10, 11, when parents start to give them a phone, they start to see things online, they start to see images, and then they start to kind of get into that puberty stage. A big aspect is their environment and their social connections, like their company, and especially if it's not taught at home, or if it's not taught, within education or
Yeah.
Islamic education or wherever they are. This is something that's important. I think if for the ones that are, I don't know if they're listening in, but see people like from organizations and institutions, like we work closely with the health improvement teams in urban community projects, and I have these conversations with them, and they fully understand. They know, because it comes under the realm of sexual health, and there is the faith communities as well, and they do respect that fact that because we've got certain parameters when it comes to these kind of things, and yeah, so that's important as well, especially for parents. Like, see if you go down the route of like just completely shutting a young person, like taking the phone off them if they find out that they are watching something dodgy, or they hear something from one of their friends or something like that, that doesn't actually help. What they need is education. They need education. They need imams or Islamic teachers to explain to them, here's what it does, here's the effects of it. And people that are non-Muslim, they're really good at that as well. So they understand the faith aspect, and what they do is they use all the kind of negative health consequences of porn use, and I think there is a bigger audience now where they're against porn completely, and they want it eradicated. They want it out of the house completely because they've seen the negative consequences it has.
And I was going to say that somebody kindly shared a link that I shared with you, Nadeem. UCLA in the States, they did a kind of research or study, and it actually was interesting because it said that of the young people that they surveyed, the majority of them felt that there was too much kind of sexual content out there. Like, they actually don't want it. It's distasteful, and they're against it. Now, obviously, we can't measure the type of groups that they went out to, and etc. etc. But the reality of it is, do you think that young people are aware? Do you think there's any percentage of young people who, and is it growing? Is there a movement against it? Is what I'm trying to get to. Do you think there's an acknowledgement, and there's a movement now, against this sort of sexualized sort of everything that you see?
There is a movement, and I'll tell you why. Because what porn does is that, see, for boys, demoralizes their view on women, because of the content. It's really sexually explicit, and the way women are treated is horrible, right? It's not good thing, healthy at all, right? It's not healthy sex at all, right? It's completely fake. It's fantasized. It's going in the kind of depth of the dark desires and nafs, or if you want to call it from an Islamic perspective. And from the female perspective, or the ones that females are watching it, it teaches them that being submitted to something, like overpowered by a man, for example, or if you go into kind of, like, this is me going really into detail, right? But going into kind of lesbian sex, or using sexual toys, or really being, submissive or dominated by harmful things. It's totally degrading. It's degrading, and for both men and women. And then the other side of it is that it goes into things like, for some people, it has an effect on, okay, what is my sexuality? And they start questioning their own identity on that. That am I really a female, or am I non-binary, or am I something else? So it does have, and again, this is through some of the research. It does show that. So it is harmful in that point of view. And yeah, and then kind of that, what that does then, it's sorry, I forgot your question. What was your...
My question was around kind of, do you think there's a movement against?
Against,
do you think young people are now deciding that, you know what, this is getting too much, enough's enough, I'm seeing too much of this, it's in everywhere that we look?
So that's what I was getting at. So because of, I mean, that's when young people see that, and they're saying that, look, this is just too much, it's everywhere, and it's too much, right? And the day and age that we live in just now, there is this kind of culture where, for example, Andrew Tate, hate to name him, right, but he always comes up in these kind of conversations. But one of the things that he's in court for again is because he was making money out of exploiting women who were going online and just kind of selling themselves. And there is another school of thought where I believe it's more kind of certain kind of feminist groups, not all of them, but certain groups where they say, well, it's all prerogative. It's up to us if we want to do that, if we want to show our bodies and make money out of it. Absolutely. But the context I'm talking about here is that there are people, there are young people, especially now, that are waking up to this, and they're seeing the damage it's done. The other thing is, there's a lot of divorces, there's a lot of illegitimate kind of from a religious perspective, illegitimate kind of pregnancies that have happened, and those kids are now grown up and they don't know who their dads are, or they've not had a relationship with their mums, and sometimes affairs and things like that. So there's so much of that from a historic kind of childhood point of view, and then when they grow up, they realize that it stems from this.
It was interesting. One of the things, because we've spoken about, and you might want to speak a wee bit more about this, but there's no doubt that there's a mental health aspect here and the impacts of porn addiction leading to anxiety and leading to depression, etc., etc. But actually, what was interesting was something I read said that they did scans of the human brain between those who were addicted to drugs such as heroin, and then they did the scans of brains of people who had admitted porn addiction. And actually, when they'd reviewed the scans of the brains, they said that the addiction, whatever kind of references they use of the brain or places they go to in the brain, it was the same. The same sort of part of the brain was, having that impact the same way it has an impact with somebody with hardcore drugs like heroin. It's the same impact it was having with someone who had an addiction to pornography. And that's a really frightening and scary thing to think.
So what I've read in the past is that the person that watches porn, that part of their brain is much stronger than someone who's a heroin addict, because when they're, like I said, porn is completely free, it's so accessible, it's in the palm of your hands all the time. But with someone who's a heroin addict, they have to do certain things. They have to do certain rituals to get to that space. So that effect on the brain is constant. It's like so powerful that it's like 10 times more than a heroin addict. So it's really, really harmful, especially if it's a child, if it's someone at the age of 11. That's the thing that's scary for me. Really scary. Like if you start watching this stuff from the age of 11, like within a few years, it totally it'll change the child's personality. It will really kind of have an effect on them. I think it's important just to say on that point of view, if you're a parent or if you're a teacher or somebody who works with young people, is kind of get yourself trained up on these things, because it does have an effect on mental health, and pick up on certain kind of traits and behaviors of young people if they're acting. I mean, if they're acting different to what they normally are, then that's something you should kind of flag up and go to a professional and get support and help.
That's what I was going to say next then. So Nadeem, as parents, both of you and I, we're both parents as well. We want to do our best for our children. We want to protect them. We also want to make sure that, in this day and age, mobile phones are a necessary evil. That might be a controversial point. However, you can't dispute that there are benefits to, at the right age, of course, there are benefits to your child having a mobile phone for safety issues and contact. There is the evil that maybe outweighs the positive. However, in terms of practical takeaways from today's discussion, you've talked about their parents being aware of behaviours, parents being aware of if they come across this type of issue, perhaps not to be alarmed as such, not to perhaps overreact, but to seek professional advice from local organisations that specialise in these things. So who would you say, Nadeem, in terms of who in our communities should we be looking out for to have these discussions? Because that's often, let's not be, there's no point sugarcoating it. A lot of people will one, the type of topic it is, they'll be ashamed to bring it out. Two, the signposting normal places like, just speak to such and such imam at such and such, masjid. Like, I don't know if that's from a religious perspective. I would believe that the imam will be able to absolutely give them the right religious and kind of spiritual guidance. My question is, should they be seeking help from someone who has a deeper understanding of mental health and trying to get into what I talk about, that underlying foundation core problem that person's facing?
I think the very first thing is, Ameer, and this is something that's one of our ethos, which we've learnt from our third co-founder, who's not here unfortunately today, but is everything starts at home. That's our kind of motto. That's our ethos. So, and for me, it's the word connection. So if we're connected too much to the phone, if we're always got our head down and we're looking at the phone, especially if it's a child, then we need to ask ourselves, okay, why are they so connected to this device and not connected to other things? So why are they not connected to, human beings, other people, or why is it that they're spending so much time? And this isn't about shaming any parents, because look, I've done it myself. It gives you a bit of peace and quiet if you put a screen in front of your children. It calms them down, but it's about moderation. It's about kind of
Balance.
Thinking about, especially if when it gets to a stage when it becomes quite harmful. If things are really bad and you feel that things are getting too much, then my suggestion would be that speak to your GP, have a chat with your GP, and there is like youth health services within the NHS, within the health improvement teams, you can get signposted to these things. And if you're a parent who's kind of thinking, and we get this a lot in urban, which is, we want someone who understands the faith, we want someone from the culture, or someone that represents the community. There are people within the NHS that you can ask for, and they can support you. We're trying to do something now. We are working with some of the services, and we're trying to be a bridge where we can support young people and families with all addictions. That's kind of what we're trying to do now. So inshallah, if the community supports us, because we know that there is a need for that when it comes to alcohol, drugs, recovery. But our kind of protocol is early intervention and prevention. That's what we're aiming to do. But for the time being, I would say speak to a GP, or speak to like a counsellor or a psychiatrist, depending on just someone. You can't go to an imam 100%, but at the same time, imams deal with everything, and imams need help as well. They need support. They're not experts in every single field. So we do get young people and families referred to us from local imams, and we've got an understanding with them, alhamdulillah. We're trying to do a little bit more with them. So this is, if you do go to an imam, you want spiritual guidance, 100%, you should. But it's that kind of old saying within our kind of tradition, which is, if you've got a sore leg, you're not going to go to a mechanic, a car mechanic. Car mechanic's going to be like, okay, I can try and help you, but I'm not an expert in the body, not in this kind of body anyway. Maybe an automobile body. You go to a doctor, you go to someone who's an expert in bones and flesh and things. So same way when it's something to do with addiction, mental health, behavior, all that kind of thing, emotions. My own opinion is go to the GP, go to a counsellor, psychiatrist, psychologist, and also go to an Islamic scholar as well, because it definitely has spiritual consequences, but I would go for both. That would be my suggestion to everyone.
I think it's worth, before we wrap up now, we're just coming up to 8 o'clock, Nadeem, it's worth probably mentioning then, for anybody who is seeking any help, we've been having this discussion today. We have a fantastic team of male and female people who can help. We don't want it to sound like a promotion, but we do have access to trained counsellors and professionals and medical professionals as well, who can assist in kind of issues like this. So don't suffer in silence. Don't try and hide away from something like this. Don't be nervous, or don't be shy that if you come and approach our organisation that you'll face anything like that. We're a confidential service, and we treat everyone with respect and dignity. And as Nadeem said, you're not going to tell us anything that we've not heard before. So yeah, I think maybe worth Nadeem just kind of pointing that out to the people who are watching, and the people who may watch after this live goes wider.
Yeah, definitely. Our approach is non-judgmental, and everyone, all the staff, we're not a huge team. We're a small team, but the team that we do have are at minimum counsellors, qualified counsellors and counselling skills, and we, like Ameer said there, there's nothing that you can tell us that's going to completely shock us. I've been working in the sector for a long time, and even in the years of Urban Community Project, we get all sorts of things, but our kind of main thing is that we have the lens of looking at the soul of the person, whatever they come with. Like I said, pornography, drugs, alcohol, or any addiction, it's a behavioral challenge for the person. It's something that, if you've got the intention that you want support and help, that's what we're here for. That's what we're here to support. I feel like from the women aspect, what we were talking about earlier on, the female aspect, there is a lot of more work to be done. And for the females listening, I know this is two guys that are talking about this, but we did try. Me and Ameer did contact some of the contacts that we have, as in health practitioners and psychologists and counsellors, and but if people want to come back to us and they want to join us in a discussion, or they've got something to say, please get in touch. Or you can come in if you're local to Glasgow, if you want to have a further discussion about it. But yeah, thank you so much for
Brilliant.
listening.
Thank you, Nadeem. Okay, I think we can finish this evening's session up. Hopefully it was informative. Hopefully people took something from it. It's a casual conversation, and everything that Nadeem and I say, we say with the best of intentions, and we hope that everybody remains healthy and knows that Urban Community Project are there to support, young or old, whatever we can. And we will hopefully see you guys very soon again in another exciting topic, which is yet to be decided. And if any of our listeners have any ideas as to any topics they want to hear us talk about, and we're always open to people joining us. If there's anybody who wishes to jump on the live with us, please let us know in advance, and we'll be happy to try and accommodate that. But if there's nothing else, we will leave you guys, and inshallah see you next time. Take care.
Thank you. Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.